The following program, Normal Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting normal.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Normal Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Normal. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Normal Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Normal's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokets. Welcome. It is Wednesday, September 7th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. And sadly, the 15th anniversary of the killing of Tupac Shakur. 15 years later, we still don't know who killed Pac. Joining me here is Calico Castile on the Calico Cam.
Hey.
What's up with that, Calico? Why don't we know who killed Pac?
I don't know, man. We also don't charge people for crashing our economy, so we're not very good at justice in this country. That's just my opinion, man.
Well, thank you so much. Joining us also in the studio today, we've got Cannabis Cure UK, a.k.a. Greg. How you doing, Greg?
How's it going? Thanks for letting me back in.
We have to let you back in. We still have your stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, we're having ourselves a great show for today. On today's show, we're going to be covering all sorts of great news and information for you. Unfortunately, Ganja John can't be with us today. He's having a bit of a migraine issue, and Cannabis Carrie is otherwise busy with her, I believe it's the pledge drive for the coastradio.org, but she will be live in studio with us tomorrow and Friday, so you'll get your normal news with Cannabis Carrie on the next couple of shows. For today, I'll be bringing your hemp headlines, which includes some very interesting topics, especially on a Wednesday when we get to speak with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. There's a study out about pot and obesity with a very surprising result. Another study about cannabinoids being used to fight off alcohol-induced brain damage. So we'll get to that. Both of those we'll discuss with Dr. Mitch. There's a rally in Michigan, all sorts of stuff going on in Michigan in the wake of their appeals court deciding that patient-to-patient sales are illegal, and a lot of these dispensaries now are closing down. 100,000 patients now without a place to get their medicine. There was a rally in the state capital of Lansing we'll tell you about. Also, a laboratory in Michigan that's been testing street marijuana has some very scary statistics for us and shows once again the need for safe and regulated dispensaries. And then we go down to the south, down to Georgia. We've got a story about a judge down there who's been sitting on his butt collecting salary while he's being ousted from the bench for charges that involve marijuana, among other things. Also on today's show, it's Irie Wednesday, so we're going to get our daily toker tune from NorCal Perps. That's Kyle down there in Northern California. He's going to bring us some music from the Expendables, a tune called Sensimilia. And you were telling me that the Expendables are coming around here locally, Calico?
Yeah, they'll be here October 7th with Pepper at the Roseland Theater, so hopefully we'll be able to make it out and say what's up to the guys.
Yeah, maybe we can get the Expendables on a Irie Island hour or something.
Hell yes. I'm going to try, definitely.
That'd be a lot of fun. Like I already mentioned, today is Wednesday, and we speak with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. He's going to bring us our Cannabis Science segment where you can call in live at 971-533-7111. I got my own phone number on the brain and it's confusing me here. You can call in at 971-533-7111, ask your questions for Dr. Mitch, or ask him in our live chat room through Ustream. And then at the end of the show, we're going to do a little bit of grassroots activism. We're going to be talking with Carly Duran, the executive director of one of the newer chapters in the Normal Chapter Network. That's San Antonio Normal. Got an interesting story that's brewing down there, plus more news about the 420 Truth cars down there. Stay tuned, all of that coming up on Normal Show Live.
This is Normal Show Live. the voice of the marijuana nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
You're listening to Normal Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, Tokers, this is Radical Russ encouraging you to check out the great music this summer. And one group you should definitely check out are big supporters of normal and marijuana legalization, and that's Slightly Stupid. Get all the details online at seedlesssummertour.com. Slightly Stupid. Revolution. Swayze. And Cisco. It's the Stonia Show of the summer, coming to Missoula, Boise, Redmond, Washington, Eugene and Jacksonville, Oregon, Lake Tahoe, Berkeley, San Diego, Salt Lake City, Aspen, Denver, Asbury Park, Guilford, New Hampshire, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, Baltimore, Charlotte, Cocoa Beach, Boca Raton, St. Augustine, Atlanta, Raleigh, Columbus, Ohio, Chicago, Mesa, Arizona, and Irvine, California. Don't miss it. For more details, visit SeedlessSummerTour.com. Seedless Summer Tour is sponsored by Seedless.com, Sector 9, Groove Shark, Revolution Vodka, and Silver Surfer Vaporizers.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Normal News with Cannabis Carry.
Cannabis Carry has the day off today. I'm Radical Russ with your Normal News. Smoking pot will not make you thin. However, many thin people do smoke pot. Now, I love watching the media report on the marijuana stories. It turns out, according to separate analyses of U.S. data by researchers in France, that Americans who smoke pot are less likely to be obese than their non-toking counterparts. Now, this is a quote from the report. Quote, cannabis is supposed to increase appetite, says Dr. Yann Lestrade, a psychiatrist at Louis Molière Hospital in Cologne, France, and co-author of a new study in the American Journal of Epidemiology. Quote, so we hypothesize that cannabis users would be more likely to have higher weight than non-users and be more likely to be obese, end quote. Instead, Lestrade and his colleagues found just the opposite. Now, this kind of reminds me of Dr. Donald Tashkin, hypothesizing that cannabis smokers must have greater incidence of cancer than non-smokers, and finding just the opposite. This was Study Finds No Cancer Marijuana Connection. Look it up from the Washington Post in 2006. Now, what Dr. Lestrade found in two separate surveys of U.S. comorbidity data, they call it, from the Centers of Disease Control, is that in one study, 22% of non-tokers were obese. You know, a little more than 1 in 5 Americans that didn't smoke pot were obese. Now, obese is, I think, greater than 20% overweight, something like that. In that study, they found 14.3% of the tokers, the people who admitted to smoking 3 times a week or more, were not obese. Now, this freaked them out so bad, they said, well, there must have been a mistake. We must have got a bad sample. They went back and looked at some other data, and the second time they looked at it, they found 25% of the non-tokers were obese, 1 in 4, and 17.2% of the tokers who admitted to 3 times a week or more were obese. So a huge difference in the rate of obesity among frequent cannabis smokers. And they also found out the more often you smoked pot, the less likely you were to be obese. Now, correlation is not causation. There could be all sorts of other reasons that would explain this. And we will talk with Dr. Mitch Earlywine in our segment at half past the hour to maybe get some explanations as to what may be the cause behind these data. In other news from Cannabis Science, latest studies imply that cannabinoids are protective against alcohol-induced brain damage. From Paul Armentano, our deputy director, the administration of synthetic cannabinoid agonist HU211 decreases nerve cell death in an in vitro model of ethanol withdrawal, according to data published online in the Journal of Public Library of Science. An international team of researchers from France and Spain assessed the anti-excitotoxic effects of the synthetic cannabinoid HU211 in culture. Researchers demonstrated that cannabinoid administration protected neurons from cell death in an experimental model of ethanol withdrawal, ethanol, of course, being alcohol. By contrast, the administration of a cannabinoid antagonist, rimonabant, during ethanol withdrawal greatly increased cell death. Quote, "These observations show for the first time that the stimulation of the endocannabinoid system could be protective against the hyperexcitability developed during alcohol withdrawal," investigators concluded. By contrast, the blockade of the endocannabinoid system seems to be counterproductive during alcohol withdrawal, end quote. In humans, the abrupt cessation of alcohol in dependent subjects may be associated with tremor, delirium, brain damage, and even death. Separate preclinical studies have previously documented that the administration of non-psychotropic organic cannabinoid cannabidiol, or CBD, in animals is neuroprotective against cerebral infarction and ethanol-induced neurotoxicity, or alcohol poisoning. And in 2009 and 2010, a pair of studies conducted by investigators at the University of California at San Diego reported that the consumption of cannabis may offset certain alcohol-induced brain abnormalities, including loss of white matter integrity and impaired memory in human subjects with a history of both alcohol and. This is coming out from our forthcoming weekly media advisory. You can look this up at normal.org. Find it kind of ironic for all the people that I ever met in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings that would say that using cannabis was cheating, that you weren't being truly sober, when we might find that using cannabis, especially in the case of severe alcoholics, might save their brains. There's been a lot of fallout recently from the situation in Michigan, where the appeals court decided that patient-to-patient sales were illegal, and a lot of the dispensaries, if not all of the dispensaries in Michigan, are closing their doors. Well, this comes from the Detroit News. 1,500 rally at the Capitol in favor of medical marijuana. Lansing, Michigan. About 1,500 filled the Capitol lawn Wednesday afternoon, lobbying signs that said, "Patients are not criminals," and "Weed deserve better," in the largest pro-medical marijuana rally in Michigan. The spirited gathering, featuring young, old, and sick in wheelchairs, comes after an appeals court ruling last month that shuttered many of the estimated 400 to 500 dispensaries and banned patient-to-patient sales of pot for the nearly 100,000 carriers of medical marijuana cards. The ruling has effectively limited the ways in which patients can get medical marijuana, leaving them with few safe options to get their doctor-prescribed medicine, supporters said Wednesday. Doctor-recommended medicine. Quote, "This is about our rights," said Robert Redden of Ferndale. Much of the anger was centered on Attorney General Bill Schuett, who has praised the August appeals court ruling. One of the biggest cheers of the afternoon rally came with a plane flyover with a banner that read, "Schuett, keep patients off the streets." Those rallying told stories of their dispensaries being raided and shut down. Others praised the efforts marijuana has had on improving their health. They lamented the government's role in attacking medical marijuana users and providers, even after Michigan voters approved its medical use in 2008. Schuett has argued marijuana is authorized only in very limited circumstances, and medical use doesn't include the sales of marijuana. He's called the appeals court ruling, quote, "a huge victory for public safety and Michigan communities struggling with an invasion of pot shops near their schools, homes, and churches," end quote. Under the law, state-issued medical marijuana cards let holders have 2.5 ounces of usable pot and up to 12 plants. Registered caregivers can also grow marijuana for 5 people. Changes proposed by some legislators require stricter doctor-patient relationships before a patient could get authorization to use the drug. Well, once again, is it medicine or is it not medicine? And if it's medicine, why are you so concerned about it being dispensed near your schools, homes, and churches? I don't see anybody rallying here to say we need to keep Walgreens away from our schools, homes, and churches. In fact, I used to go to school at a place back in Nampa, Idaho, that now the school is across the street from a Walgreens. I think it actually turned into a Walgreens. We don't see this with any other medicine, but when it comes to medical marijuana, the government seems to think that this is some sort of moral decision, and that's what it really is here when they start talking about, being around the invasion of pot shops near schools, homes, and churches. It's a moral decision here. They don't like us for using marijuana. They don't like us as people, and they want to continue to discriminate against us as they always have. Now, speaking of Michigan and patients being forced out onto the street, a marijuana tester finds street-bought pot unsafe. This from the Petoskey News. Chris Engel, the staff writer on this one from Gaylord, Michigan. The owner of a Gaylord laboratory which tests locally grown medical marijuana fears patients who use black market pot may be subjecting themselves to unsafe levels of mold and pesticides. Dan Tomaski, a certified caregiver who runs Northern Laboratory Services on North Center Avenue, said last month's court ruling, which closed marijuana collectives across the state, forces some patients to buy cannabis from street dealers. That pot, Tomaski said, can harbor mold as well as pesticides at levels more than 60 times those allowed for store-bought spinach. Tomaski, age 33, is hired by local caregiver growers to test their marijuana for quality and purity. He dissolves a sample of marijuana into a solution and injects it into a gas chromatograph, which gives readings in parts per million of pesticides as well as the plant's active compounds, THC, CBD, and CBN. He also uses a lab microscope to look for mold, which can cause respiratory problems, especially in those with weak immune systems. He said cannabis from local growers that was being sold at Gaylord's collectives tested, quote, 100% free of pesticides, end quote. 4 samples of marijuana bought off the streets in Metro Detroit and Traverse City, however, contained pesticides upward of 440 parts per million of permethrin, 630 parts per million of cypermethrin, and 485 parts per million of beta-cyfluthrin. By comparison, for spinach, the U.S. Department of Agriculture sets residual limits of 20, 6, and 14, respectively. Mold, dirt, and suspected insect droppings were also found in the samples, according to Tomaski. These are unfit for consumption, he said, noting he's published those findings on his website in what he calls the Schwag Report. We published this report to show what some people would be forced back into using if these collectives close, he said, referring to last month's ruling. It's making it more dangerous for patients. I don't understand why courts are forcing patients back into that. And again, that's the question here. It's not whether or not there's going to be dispensaries. There are. It's just who's going to be dispensing. Is it going to be regulated above ground in shops where we can control age and control potency and pesticides and all of these different considerations? We can know what we're getting, or is it going to be on the black market? Again, if it's medicine, and we wouldn't expect people to have to brew up their own OxyContin in their bathtub now, would we? And one final note, there was a Georgia Supreme Court judge who's just recently been ousted from, a Georgia Appeals Court judge who's just recently been barred from being a judge or ever holding elected office again. Now, the charges against him had to do with him going just a little off the deep end, apparently. There was some incidents where he was noted to have been using marijuana for 2 months, but apparently the really bad parts here is that he had a kind of a violent streak here. He kicked in the doors at the residence of his sister-in-law's estranged husband, and then also appeared on a local cable television show during which he called the chief magistrate judge spineless and outed or revealed the identity of a confidential informant for the Catoosa County Sheriff's Office. He also called a local TV station to rant in a foreign accent about the sheriff. While the sheriff was being interviewed on a TV talk show, this judge called in, disguising his voice with various foreign accents, calling the sheriff, quote, a spineless jelly spine. Well, anyway, he's been ousted from office, and we talked about this in yesterday's hour too. I just wanted to update this because the latest story coming out on this points out that he was on paid administrative leave during this entire time. This judge made more than $70,000 over the last 14 months doing nothing. He was drawing a $5,056 a month salary while he was awaiting these charges. And I just want to know, anyone else out there who's a working person, if you had been suspected of and caught with evidence of using pot for 2 months or longer, kicking in the doors at your estranged sister-in-law's place, going on cable television shows and calling your boss a spineless jelly spine, do you think you'd get 14 months off work with pay? I don't think so. All right, well, we're having some fun here in the studio. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, it's time for Irie Wednesday with NorCal Perps waiting on the line. See you in a minute.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Normal Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Hey, this is Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger Seeds, TGAgenetics.com, and you're listening to The Normal Network.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit MarijuanaIsSafer.com.
And now, another episode of Cannabis Shakespearean Theatre. I'm your host, Leonard Pinth-Garnell III. Tonight we take a look at one of the finest works in the cannabis cinema, 1996's Half-Baked, starring David Chappelle, as interpreted by the Royal Shakespearean Cannabis Theatre Company. In this scene, Chappelle's character, Thurgood Marshall, has just admitted his addiction to cannabis to a room full of narcotics addicts. One addict, played in the film by Robert Saget, and interpreted here by the Royal Company's Sir Frederick Farrach, takes umbrage at the suggestion.
I find preposterous the notion that you, sir, may be addicted to cannabis. In times previous, I have undertaken lubricious endeavours, most revolting and unbecoming of a proper gentleman, in my servitude to the wicked powder of the coca leaf. Lo, that is an addiction whose chains would bind Hercules. At any point in history, could one identify a moment in your life so sullied by your ignominy as a cannabis slave? Methinks not! Boo this man!
For Cannabis Shakespearean Theatre, I'm Leonard Pinth-Garnell III.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we get tunes for Irie Wednesday, our celebration of that mellow vibe we find in the best of reggae, ska, calypso, and Latin music. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Normal Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, welcome back. Hanging on the line with us on Skype is Kyle, a.k.a. NorCal Perps. How you doing?
Not too bad. How you doing, Russ?
Oh, my God, you sound like you're in the room with us. That's fantastic. You must have got a new mic.
Yeah, I went out this morning, got a new mic headset, figured be doing the live call-in, so better get something nice for you guys.
Right on. Thank you so much. Well, how's everything going down there in the Northern California area?
Good. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day out here. I'm just listening to the show and getting ready to go see Catch a Fire over in Santa Cruz today.
Oh, how cool. Oh, very cool. And were you able to get out to that International Cannabis and Hemp Expo out there in Oakland this last weekend?
I did not. Saturday I had a lot of work to do making tinctures and other nice treats for people that came all the way from Southern California And then Sunday I was going to go out, but I just didn't get a chance to make it out there.
Yeah.
From what I hear, it was 2-hour lines to get verified unless you were VIP. So I just stayed away and went to the after parties.
I'm sure there was plenty of cannabis going around wherever you were anyway. You are NorCal Perps, after all.
Yeah, you know, bringing the nail around wherever I go, trying to get people in the oil ways.
That's you, all right. NorCal Perps, you got our Irie Wednesday for us. Tell us what's up.
Well, so today we have the Expendables. Been together since '97. They staked their claim in California surf rock, blending reggae, punk rock, and 80s-style dueling guitar solos. They have toured with such acts as 311, Pepper, Slightly Stupid, Less Than Jake, and Cottonmouth Kings. Miles from Slightly Stupid even liked them so much, they were one of the first acts signed to the recording label Stupid Records. So everyone, go ahead and take a moment, load up a bowls, because here's Expendables with Sensa Mia.
Sense to me, yeah, yeah. I said smoke, smoke, smoke. I said smoke, smoke that sense to me. I said smoke, smoke, smoke. Smoke that sense to me. I said smoke, smoke, smoke. Smoke that sense to me. Down on the east side of town. We're going down, where there's parties all around. We'll be a illin', chillin' at Mikey's house, smoking the ganja braids of a mouse. I don't want no tip nowhere else. Just keep me in SC and I will take care of myself. The ESC is the place to be because the ESC has the best MC. I say smoke, smoke, smoke. I say smoke. Smoke that sense to me, yeah, yeah. I say smoke, smoke, smoke. I say smoke, smoke that sense to me, yeah, yeah. Don't be surprised if you smoke a little tie and a friendly neighbor with a watchful eye decides to spy and it picks up the phone and the police come by. Well, they take you to your pin and you start to cry. You look at the Lord and say, why, God, why? But did I smoke that time? I'll tell you why. I say smoke, smoke, smoke. I smoke that sense of me. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I say smoke, smoke, smoke. I say smoke, smoke that sense of me. I don't smoke to get high. How about smoking some of my tie? You know that I am always straight. I only smoke to meditate. When are you gonna pass that law so I can plant some on my lawn? I like to drink it in my tea and bake it in my brownie. I like to drink it in my tea and bake it in my brownie. Yeah, 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 yeah. Paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, Jay was smoking 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper.
my fat sack. I got some ziggy ziggy zags for my fat sack. I got some ziggy ziggy zags for my fat sack. I got some ziggy ziggy zags for my fat sack. I got some ziggy ziggy zags for my fat sack. I got some ziggy ziggy zags for my fat sack. I said smoke, smoke, smoke. Smoke that Sansevieria, yeah. I said smoke, smoke, smoke. Smoke that Sansevieria.
You want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Have you considered medical marijuana? Double-blind, peer-reviewed studies have found cannabinoid therapies to be successful in treating the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, brain cancers, chronic pain, diabetes mellitus, dystonia, fibromyalgia, GI disorders, hepatitis C, HIV/AIDS, hypertension, incontinence, MRSA, multiple sclerosis, osteoporosis, pruritus, rheumatoid arthritis, sleep apnea, and Tourette's syndrome, as well as anecdotal evidence suggesting relief from anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, plus reduction in the need for narcotic painkillers. Side effects of medical marijuana can include euphoria, relaxation, anxiety, panic reactions, paranoia, tachycardia, dry eyes, dry mouth, concentration and reaction time impairment, appetite increase, and in 37 states, arrest and incarceration. But medical marijuana is non-toxic and cannot cause overdose. Medical marijuana. It's not for everyone, but ask your doctor if medical marijuana may be right for you.
This woman has to be gotten to a hospital.
A hospital? What is it?
It's a big building with patients, but that's not important right now.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my sip from Starfish. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
It's time for Normal Show Live's Cannabis Science with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Wine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York in Albany and the author of Understanding Marijuana. Now here's your dose of cannabis science.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and welcome back to Dr. Mitch Earlywine here for our Wednesday segment. How you doing, sir?
Having a great day.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. We've got a couple of studies that we covered in the news today that I'd like to get your opinion on. And the first one was that one that showed that pot smokers, in fact, the more regular the pot smoker, the less likely they were to have obesity, and just what you thought of that study.
I'm not recommending the train wreck diet plan.
I see.
The bottom line here is this is also correlational, and as much as I'd love to say, hey, cannabis is the key to good health, there's a lot going on in this data set other than just cannabis use. The researchers did a great job of trying to control for some of the obvious covariates like just socioeconomic status and things like that. There's an interesting literature that this made me dive into showing that basically obese people don't have a whole lot of other sources of pleasure in their lives. And so they're also less likely to drink alcohol in some studies and don't seem to do a whole lot of activities in general, as you'd expect, given just the link between being active and being thin. Nevertheless, I feel like there's something interesting going on here phenomenologically. People have emailed me about how sometimes basically the cannabis experience is a little bit aversive if you're overweight, or if you feel like you have to face yourself in the midst of a high and say, wow, time really needs to change. I think those are wonderful tales, but again, I just don't feel like this is a causal situation where cannabis is actually making people thin. I think thin people just happen to enjoy a lot of activities, including cannabis.
Yeah, some of the initial reports out were good. I mean, Gawker came out with a headline that said, pot smokers less likely to be obese. But then there was these other headlines. I love these. How to fight obesity? Maybe try smoking marijuana. And fight obesity with marijuana. And then my favorite, you'll love this one. marijuana, the newest and laziest weight loss craze sweeping the nation. So, that's the way the media, likes to twist these things. I had some ideas I wanted to run by you that, maybe things to look at here. You mentioned the alcohol. I got to thinking that too, that the people I know that consume cannabis the most drink the least. So perhaps, less calories from beer. We got out here in Portland, we got a lot of hippie vegan bicycling stoners. We got them. And then how about economics in these studies? I mean, couldn't people that can afford good marijuana can afford, better groceries? What are some of the things that might explain this?
The obvious one along those lines is just a gym membership, and I wish that they would have just asked that, or even how much you exercise, because I do feel like some data from Costa Rica suggests that it's the people who are employed, who have money, who are busy, who are actually the ones who are using cannabis the most down there. Mm-hmm. And, that might be an interesting mechanism for how this correlation might have arisen.
Okay. And there's another interesting study, and this is coming out in our normal weekly news, having to do with a study out on this HU211, a synthetic cannabinoid that decreases nerve cell death in vitro for ethanol withdrawal. And basically they're saying that, hey, this might be a promising thing for treating people that are, trying to recover from alcoholism, trying to detox from alcohol, which can be, life-threatening. And I was wondering if you saw that and what your thoughts are on that study.
I've only read the abstract, but this is consistent with other basically neuroprotective effects we've seen with the cannabinoids in the past. Now, HU210 is a hell of a lot stronger a CB1 agonist than THC is, so we don't want to jump to outrageous conclusions, but we have seen the cannabinoids protect neural functioning in other experiments, and this is certainly consistent with that. I want to add that you're not exaggerating about alcohol detox. This is a really serious condition, and it's something that often we see folks with a lot of neuropsychological problems after years and years of heavy drinking, and like anything that can help preserve that cognitive functioning is actually going to help them stay off alcohol later on, because it's the folks with better neuropsych functioning at the end of treatment who end up being the ones who aren't drinking at 1 year follow-up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at, alcohol recovery. I mean, it's of all the drugs that you could try to recover from, alcohol might just be the worst one.
I mean, as much as we make fun of the opiate withdrawal and have a lot of expressions for it, the alcohol lethality is a big issue.
All right. We are taking questions now in our chat room for Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Your questions on cannabis science, the culture, the history of cannabis. Just personal message them to me through the chat. Carrie is not here today, so you just send them through personal message and I'll be able to read them. We get this first one asking about tolerance to cannabis and whether or not it is strain specific. This person says, every time I consume a new strain after I've been using a different strain, consistently, he seems to feel the effects more, even though it's a less potent strain. So can you have a different tolerance to different strains?
As it turns out, that is the case, and it's not that your THC tolerance is altered, but a new strain may have different amounts of cannabidiol, which seems to moderate THC's impact. So if you suddenly have a strain that doesn't have as much cannabidiol as the one you've been using, you'll find you have more magical thoughts and kind of a more intense heady experience, if you will, if that's not the kind of strain you're used to. And I've had a number of emails with comparable reports, and I feel like this is not something that's going to be a top priority at NIDA, but it's definitely the kind of research that we want to keep in mind when folks are looking for specific effects and want to switch from one strain to another in order to maintain those effects without having to increase their dosage.
Yeah, and it certainly would help if we were certain of what the genetics are, if we had, regulations and testing that would guarantee those sort of things, but, that's why we're here fighting for legalization. All right, we have a question here from Jackaroo59, a really good one. Kids are being exposed to medical marijuana during primetime television. They ask questions. What is the school telling them? What should I be telling them to avoid the teacher hearing that Daddy does that?
So I mentioned this in the Parent's Guide to Marijuana, and the bottom line is some things in the family are private. So things we do in our house aren't for public consumption. We have activities that we're willing to share. I'm happy to tell folks what TV we were watching, that kind of stuff. Other stuff is just for our family, and I want to keep it that way. And kids will buy into that if it's presented that way, not if, oh my God, this is really dangerous and scary, so don't tell anyone or I'll end up in jail.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've got a question here from Captain Keelhaul, and he says that he's emailed you this as well, and you said you had to look into it. So if you haven't had the chance, that's fine. I'll bring up the question though. It says he's been treating a number of joint pain and skin conditions with a 5% THC oil in a hand lotion. He has a new patient that has problems with gastric bypass surgery and MRSA and has to, do the daily changing of the dressings and all. Would using a THC oil be something to be recommended for the external wound area and even in the wound area? And how would you do that if you would?
I've spoken to one physician since I got this email, and he would have nothing to do with this question. And generally, what some folks have said is, in principle, they would try a little bit and see if you got a negative reaction, and then try a little bit more and see if you got a negative reaction, and go like that. And it's stunning to me how much of, basically physician practice is kind of a version of this, of try and see. But that's the closest recommendation I could get from anyone who actually had an MD and was willing to talk to me about it.
Okay. This next question kind of goes back to what we were talking about with, the protecting the brain matter of in alcohol withdrawal. This person's asking about the evidence, if there is any, of cannabis helping to cure cocaine addiction and possibly alcoholism. What do we know about that?
So I have literally at least 8 individual cases where folks have emailed me something along these lines about how cannabis either eased withdrawal, helped craving, or just kept their mind off situations that involve other drugs. Unfortunately, this is not a topic that's an okay one to publish about here in the United States. The 12-step movement is big, and I'm not down on that. If it's working for people, by all means, go to town. But that's the model for treatment in this country, is everything, and that's the way to get clean, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, the number of individual cases who are showing up on this seem to be numerous enough to think, hey, there's really something here. Now, it's interesting because we've seen studies on modafinil, one of the stimulants that we're giving the Army guys, being used to help cocaine addicts. We do find the occasional person with cocaine addiction who actually has untreated ADHD, and so they often respond well to Adderall or Ritalin in a time-released format, and that seems to help them. So I don't see why this shouldn't be another option. Unfortunately, the folks who are basically qualified to do this research and approved to administer THC don't see this as the pressing issue for them to investigate right now.
Yeah, it's such a shame too. And I grew up around that 12-step movement. My father became a drug and alcohol counselor, so I was well steeped in the whole Al-Anon and Alateen and the AA movements and the NA movements and all of that. And I always felt it was such a shame and kind of a weird hypocrisy for cannabis to be demonized as much as it was by a room full of people chain smoking cigarettes and chugging coffee. So it's just, I wish we could get away from that moralism about it and take a look at how cannabis can help people in recovery situations, because I really believe that it can, even from my own personal experience and benefit here. Folks, we got time for one more of our chat questions. If you didn't get a chance to get your question in, you can send it in by email to 420research@gmail.com. That's 420research@gmail.com. And next week, we won't have a cannabis science segment. Next Wednesday, I will be in Ontario, Oregon at a town hall meeting. So the next opportunity you'll have will be in a couple weeks to get a question answered live. Our final question here comes from Hardstyle 420. Wants to know, does weight or metabolism affect how long cannabis's effect stays in your system?
In fact, it does, and it looks like in part because THC is fat soluble, having more fat cells gives it more opportunity to connect to something. We also, sad but true, have our metabolism slow some when exposed to THC. So Fulton's data suggests that you're essentially not going to burn up calories quite as quickly. So we're not going to see that general excretion of THC in its metabolites be as rapid in folks who have slow metabolisms or who have more fat cells for the THC to hang out in.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. And now your brains are full of cannabis science, folks. Check back in 2 weeks for more, your weekly dose of cannabis science with Dr. Mitch Earleywine. Thank you, Dr. Mitch, for joining us once again.
Talk to you soon.
As High Times Senior Cultivation Editor, I'm often called into the field and asked to sample or even identify exotic strains of marijuana in their natural habitat. Now, for the first time, I've compiled more than 120 of my favorite strains into this single field guide designed to fit into your pocket as you travel the world in search of your favorite plant. From a friend's closet grow room to the wilds of Northern California, this single guide covers all of today's best-known strains, plus heirlooms and throwbacks, including High Times quality photos and information on each variety's genetic heritage and growing characteristics, plus my personal notes on aroma, flavor, and potency. So this is Danny Danko, author of the official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains, wishing you good times and great ganja.
The official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains is available at hightimes.com and finer bookstores.
Hey, is it 420 yet? This is Rick Cusick from High Times Magazine, and you're tuned into Normal's Audio Stash.
If I were to tell you that in America, right now, over 1 million children sell marijuana, what would you think? Would you think that any public policy that creates over 1 million teenage marijuana dealers needs to be re-examined and possibly amended? You would not be alone. The members of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, aka NORML, have been working since 1970 to reform marijuana laws such that responsible adults, not children, sell and use marijuana. Isn't it high time to reform America's misguided marijuana laws? This is Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML in Washington, D.C. Only concerned citizens can effectively end the federal government's nearly 70-year-old prohibition on responsible adult marijuana sales and use. Want to know more about how you can help? Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization informative at NORML, NORML.org.
NORML, unlike any other marijuana or drug reform organization, is built from the ground up by grassroots activists. We are the Marijuana Smokers Lobby, and we aren't just anti-prohibition, we're pro-marijuana. Every week, we take some time to talk to the citizens of local NORML chapters across the country and around the world, as well as others who are working to make a difference in the fight to end adult marijuana prohibition. In this segment, we call Grassroots Activism.
Well, folks, this year in May, I got my opportunity to go to Austin, Texas for the Global Marijuana March down there, courtesy of Texas NORML, and got a chance to meet many of the activists down there in Texas that are fighting for an end to marijuana prohibition in the Lone Star State. And joining us today is one of those activists I was very happy to meet, Carly Duran, who's the Executive Director of San Antonio NORML. Carly, welcome to the show.
Hello, welcome. Thank you. I'm glad to be on the show.
Oh, so glad to have you here. And we just wanted to get in touch with you. You had sent me an email about some concerns that were going on down there in San Antonio. You wanted to get the word out about that. So let's start with that. What is happening in San Antonio that our audience needs to know about?
Well, we have purchased a smart car, and it is going to be wrapped in the next week or two with San Antonio NORML's logos and advertisement and the medical marijuana symbol and the National NORML webpage. The National Organization to Reform Marijuana Laws will be written on there. As much as we can fit on a smart car is going to be on there.
Those smart cars, what are we talking about?
So we're really excited about that because we're going to get lots of advertisement with that.
Carly, what are those smart cars? When you say smart cars, some people may not know what we're talking about. I know because we're in Portland, Oregon, but what kind of car are we talking about?
The littlest cars on the market, basically. The little bitty two-seater, like considered in the motorcycle family, small. They should call them small cars instead of smart cars.
Yeah. These cars look like a little roller skate. They're about as long as they are wide. You can back up into a parallel parking spot in these things.
That's what someone told me yesterday. They told me, they were like, is it true that you can just back into a a parallel parking spot that you don't have to parallel? And I was like, I've only had the car for 2 weeks, so I don't know, but I would sure like to find out. I'm sure I'll get to ask a police officer once I'm driving it around with marijuana leaves all over it. So.
I bet, yeah. What's the gas mileage on something like that?
Oh, I get it's at least 40 miles per gallon highway and about close to 30 miles per gallon in the city. And so, I mean, I fill up it costs me about $25 to fill up a tank, and that lasts me for a good almost 400 miles.
Oh, fantastic. And, that's kind of a nice message to be sending along with the legalization message, is that we're also, environmentally aware about this stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to have Go Green put on there too. Go Green, re-legalize. I went today to have the measurements taken of the car and pointed out where I wanted all the graphics put on the car, and so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And the other news that we had was that we had tried back in June to adopt a park with the city of San Antonio, and the liaison was a really sweet lady and was really supportive of us getting our application getting approved, and but they got the assistant city attorney involved, and between the city assistant attorney, and they did a lot of research, and they looked into what if Austin had ever had anything like that or anywhere around the U.S. Besides, they also looked into the Texas Highway Department, Adopt a Highway, and there's been a few normal chapters that have done that, but we were trying to adopt a city park so it could be more family oriented because you can't really have a 3-year-old on the side of a highway, but you can at a
not generally
park, Yeah. So we wanted something. We wanted to do something for our community, and we thought that was a perfect opportunity. And we had 28 people that had RSVP'd to our event of doing the Adopt a Park, so we had a lot of people that were willing to help volunteer with it, and they did do the research and did consider us. That she said that they didn't just close the door and say no, to begin with, but it ended up coming down to they didn't want, because they're government affiliated, they didn't want it looking like San Antonio was saying that they were for marijuana, that the city of San Antonio was for marijuana. And like I told her, NORML is here to stay, and we are going to change the city, especially with our smart car and getting the advertisement out, and we're going to invite it to places left and right. Please come set a booth up at our place, and just more than we can even attend. And so it's been very exciting, and so what I told her was that maybe down the line they will see that they really missed out on an opportunity for a great group of people that just wanted to help their community and clean up the parks, and that it was sad that they compared us to tobacco, and I pointed out that 5.4 million people die a year in the world from tobacco, and there's 0 deaths of marijuana, and that it's not just about recreational smoking, it's about medicinal, it's about hemp, it's about just educating, and we weren't even planning on wearing our normal shirts. We were just, it was just wanting to help the community. And she even said, I talked to her today to let her know I was going to be on here and talking about it, and she said if anyone had any comments or anything, she gave me the Parks and Recreation's web page if anybody wants to comment.
Sure.
Or, so I wanted to give that, and that's sanantonio.gov/parks and rec, REC. So it's SANANTONIO.gov/parks and REC.
Okay, we'll put that up in our chat room and up on our website as well, because this is kind of frustrating. One of the things is we get told, well, if you don't like the law, work to change it. Work to change the law, go through the system and all that. But it's really hard to go through the system and change the law when they equate trying to change the law with trying to promote marijuana use, right? They're two different things.
Exactly. And that's what I'm like. For example, I talked to her for a little while about our smart car and how it was going to be wrapped, and that it was that when I talked to the guy about the graphics and stuff, I told him, I said, we're going to have pot leaves on here and stuff, and so I want to send a professional image as well, and so that when I'm pulled over, which I know I'm going to be several times, when I get pulled over, I want to be able to explain to the cops, it's just not about a marijuana leaf on the car. It's we have something on the car about hemp and what hemp can do for the world, and we have some medical marijuana symbol, and we're going to have get motivated and vote on the back of the car, and we're just really trying to plant our feet firmly in San Antonio, and really trying to get some of these closet smokers or the people that believe it should be legalized but don't even smoke, but are too afraid to come out of the woodworks and say it and or do anything about it. And so we're trying to just start to get those people a little braver and get them to realize that it's nothing to be scared of. We should be frowning against smoking cigarettes, not necessarily frowning against smoking this marijuana. Marijuana is saving lives, and cigarettes are killing lives.
True.
So it's a big difference.
Absolutely.
And that's what I tried to stress to her when she turned us down, or when she called me to tell me we were turned down, but it didn't matter. It was already, the decision was already made. But because we were the first organization like ours to ever apply for an application that, like I said, that was like our cause. They had to change their guidelines because of us. Wow. And they changed they're only a year program. They're only about a year old this month, I think she said, and so they're learning as they go. But they changed their guidelines because of us applying.
Wow.
So
well, Carly Duran is.
But I encourage. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just say, I just want to let people know Carly Duran's the executive director of San Antonio NORML, and before we let you go here, because we're running against the bottom of the hour, I want to make sure people know how to get in touch with you down there in San Antonio if they do indeed want to come out of the closet. So give them websites, phone numbers, emails, anything they need to know.
Okay, that is sanormal.org. Or you can just type in normal on Google, and we come up like number 6 on the first page. You can always contact me at my number, which is 601-299-0928. My email address is director@sanormal.org. We have a Facebook. You can just look up San Antonio NORML. We have a Twitter, it's SA NORML, and we have a MySpace, but we don't really check that much. So we don't do too much on. There's a lot of cobwebs in MySpace. So.
Yes, there are. All right. Well, we'll be looking for the smart car driving down the streets of San Antonio. Maybe by the river walk sometime. Give a honk at the Alamo. It'll be a good thing.
Yes. Yes, we'll be getting pictures of it and getting it up and getting y'all some pictures.
Yeah. Send me some pictures. We'll get that posted and get all the contact info to the sanantonio.gov/parks and rec. Tell them that NORML should be allowed the same rights to adopt a park as any other civic organization. Carly, thanks so much for joining us on the show, and hope to see you in Texas again sometime soon.
Me too. I had a great time. You come back soon to see us.
I will. Thank you. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for the podcast hour. Those of you listening live, stay tuned for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. We're hanging out with Cannabis Cure and Wiz Khalico, and we'll be back tomorrow with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.